in the land of cotton, old time there I'm not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. In Dixie's land where I was born in early on one frosty morning. Look away, Dixieland. Then I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixie's land I'll take my stand and live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Oh, Mrs. Mary Will, the Weaver, William was a gay Dixie. Look away.
Ellie and Jerry made a statement today, his first statement on the Trayvon Martin case, the jury verdict, and I'll play it for you, and hopefully you can hear it.
About a number of issues, and for the first time publicly, he spoke about George Zimmerman's acquittal. Here it is.
But I think the jury made the right decision based on the evidence presented, because the prosecution inadvertently set the standard so high that the jury had to be convinced that it was a deliberate act by Zimmerman, that he was not at all defending himself, and so forth. It's not a moral question, it was a legal question, and the American law requires that the jury listen to the evidence presented. And I think another action that was taken in the courtroom was not to bring in the race issue at all. The prosecution avoided that subject quite clearly. So President Obama said he thought there was, he regretted the decision, but that we had to accept the results of the jury decision.
And you take that same position.
I do. Yeah.
Does it say anything about race in America?
I can't allege that the 6 jurors, all of whom are women, are not just as sensitive about the race issue as I am, or that you are. I don't know them, but I would presume that they listened to the evidence. The judge warned them over and over that they had to listen to the evidence only, not to their own feelings about race. And since the neither side were willing to bring in the race issue, I think as far as the jury was concerned, they could not consider that. My belief is that the verdict will stand. It can't be appealed in the criminal case. And the family might bring lawsuits.
But given the reaction in this country,
yeah,
you can't ignore it. Race, our country is responding in such a way that it makes you wonder where we stand.
I've seen outbreaks of this before, in California when the black man was being beaten up by the police, and when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. There were terrible race riots. And I think eventually, no matter how deep the moral feelings and personal feelings might be among African Americans or others, with time passing, they start seeing what can we do about the present and the future, and put aside their feelings about the past. I think that's what's going to happen in our country.
You think we're moving forward on that?
I think we're
making progress.
I think so.
And that is President.
Okay, I'm talking to Ellie Bill Graham. He's in Manhattan, and I'm talking to Jerry Pippin. He's 4 blocks from Mr. No himself, the distinguished Senator Tom Coburn, out in the very red state of Oklahoma. Good evening, gentlemen. So, what do you think of President Carter?
Well, who wants to answer it first? Go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm not very impressed. I don't believe he's going to have very much luck telling the vast majority of the Afro-American population in this country that race is not involved here. I mean, particularly here in where I'm in now, I'm visiting my brother in the Bronx. Of course, here I'm sure you're aware of the infamous policy of the New York police in stopping black and Latino youth, for no apparent reason. The infamous racial profiling policy that the New York police has been carrying out for quite some time. These people, they know the truth about the American system, and they're not going to believe what Jimmy Carter or anybody else that says going to say is going to because this is the reality of their lives, and you're not going to be able to talk them out of it. So I have to say I'm not impressed, and I'm not up the same mind. I mean, I noticed that President Carter tried to validate his opinion by quoting President Obama's statement, saying that we've got to respect the verdict that was handed down, and well, I just disagree with both of them. So you know, that's the way the cookie crumble. I'm sure that I'm not alone. You know, it's just like, ooh, I was reading it. I couldn't help but read it. That my hometown, Los Angeles, there was there's some violence going on there because the youth were just outraged about that this sort of thing could happen. And it was in my old it was in the neighborhood that I actually went to junior high school and high school in Lamert Park area of Los Angeles, and that hurts me to my heart. And my heart goes out to those youngsters because I understand, and they know the truth. They're getting a raw deal, and they've experienced it themselves, and I mean, and maybe the politicals, maybe the big time politicals, maybe they're content to sit back and accept this sort of thing. But I'm glad the youth are sick and tired of it, fed up with it, and want to do something about it. And I say, my sympathies are definitely with them. That's with the youth, with the young people that represent the future in a new way. Because this old way, it is dead and stinking, and it needs to be it needs to be thrown out a long time ago. That's all I got to say. Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, hold on, L.A. We'll get to Jerry in just a second. Incidentally, up in your other adopted neighborhood up in Northern California, there were demonstrations there on the Golden Gate. They blocked it off.
Yes, I know. I love Oakland. Long live Oakland. Only Oakland. I think only Oakland. The media is hard on Oakland, but I swear to God, you gotta love them, man. They got a fighting spirit, and they just won't back down. They won't shut up. They keep telling the truth, and they keep fighting for what they believe in. You know, they do some things that are sort of rough and kind of crude, but I know, you know, I mean, Jesus Christ, they're committed to the idea of the egalitarian society and a better life for the working people and people of all races, colors, and creed. And hey, I admire I admire their grit. They get out there and they do some. Maybe their tactics are questionable, but they keep fighting. They never give up, and I like that spirit about them.
Incidentally, today, L.A., the poet and writer Ishmael Reed was profiled in Berkeley, if you can believe that, at a Walgreens. He went in to get a sale on some bottled water, and they followed him around the store, followed him to the checkout stand there. And if you go to his Facebook page, or to my Facebook page, is Ishmael Reed, and you will see his story there, and you can complain to the Walmart, not the Walmart, the Walgreens there in Berkeley, California. I'll get that address.
God, I'll take a look at that.
Okay, and then now we'll move to Jerry. Jerry, you're the son of a preacher. You live in the Bible Belt. What do you think about Mr. President Carter's comments?
Well, I think President Carter would have been better served not to comment on it.
I agree.
First of all, the reason I want to say that is no one can deny that when it comes to the justice system and law enforcement, that there is prejudice against blacks. In fact, I just heard Ted Koppel talking a couple of days ago about the fact that 80% of black men in the statistic have been detained by police. And usually it was something like if they're driving a new car through a neighborhood, they pull them over, and et cetera, et cetera. And so there's definitely a lot of evidence about that. But about this case down in Florida, my problem is that law being passed in the first place. We are a society that's condoning murder, actually, all the time in the guise of self-defense. And, of course, this time, what self-defense was involved here? The one man had a gun, the other man didn't have one. What was they going to do when he stopped him there and pulled over? And I mean, what if I were walking down the street? I'm a white guy, and if I were walking down the street and somebody pulled me over like that, I'd say, well, what the heck is it to you? Keep on walking, you know. Why pay attention to them? It's kind of like laughable, like placing people under citizen's arrest. And so the law in Florida is greatly misplaced, and I'm surprised that it's never been overturned, and I'm surprised that people are not outraged about it. And I don't know how people in law enforcement feel about it, but with vigilantes running around and people, everybody having a gun, it seems to me that it's pretty dangerous whether you're on the right side of the law or the bad side of the law. And I just am still puzzled about why it was not manslaughter. That's the way I feel about it, and I think it's a great miscarriage of justice. And I just don't understand the verdict. Now I know, Carter was right about one thing: they did follow the law, the judge's instructions, and that Florida law is the culprit. And who wrote that, and all the guys that voted for it, as far as I'm concerned, are accessories to murder.
Well, you're correct about that. And now the stand your ground law in Florida is there, but what he was charged with was second-degree murder if he showed spite, malice, or what have you towards Trayvon Martin. And from my perspective, it was evident by his phone calls that he had malice, spite, and the whole 9 yards towards Trayvon Martin and other African-American youth, as it was pointed out. So if those things were there, he qualified for the second-degree murder charge. There's no doubt about that. But what they tried to say was that he didn't show any spite or malice, which, as Mrs. Jantel said the other night here, was just strictly BS. Incidentally, the juror in the case, I think, was E37. E37 was going to write a book. She was the woman that was the wife of an attorney that worked for the Space Corp, a private space development corporation, and she was going to write the book. She's a woman that listened to the NBC morning program. She didn't read the newspapers. In fact, she used newspapers for parrot litter, she said. And she'd had a gun but let the permit lapse. And she just believed the whole demonstrations about Trayvon Martin was just a bunch of foolishness. But yet they let her on the jury, and we found out also from her that at one time they were tied 3-3. 3 for guilt and 3 not for guilt, and somewhere there they all capitulated and decided to find him not guilty. I guess we'll hear more about that. But the book deal disappeared. That got withdrawn. As Ellie said, when the flames started up in America, somebody evidently told her that the book wasn't appropriate. So the book deal is gone, and that's where we are stuck with the case. But one thing I wanted to ask you about was Jimmy Carter and his moralizing here. He said it was not a moral case. Of course, he's in the religious business. He's always carrying Bibles around with him and all that. And the law itself that talked about spite, malice, those are all moral terms, no doubt about it. As good and as bad, that does find its way into Anglo-Saxon jurisprudence. Carter, of course, is not an attorney, but he should know better.
I'm surprised. That's the reason I said he should have kept his mouth shut.
I agree with you on that. I thought about that myself. He should have not gotten into it.
He may be, no one really has argued about Carter being morally correct, but here all of a sudden he's sounding like what he is, the son of the South. And I'm not painting everybody in the South as bigots, so don't misunderstand.
Well, right, I got the same thing out of it. He's the man is 85, 86 years old. He just didn't need to be coming up as a son of the South. There's a bunch of those running around. Even George Zimmerman wanted to sort of be that, although he was wrong color.
Absolutely, gentlemen. You know, and I mean, can you imagine? And it's not just the South, as you just said. You talked about Ishmael Reed being harassed in California,
right?
And I was talking about the infamous stop and frisk policy of New York PD here in one of the great cities of the world. Can you imagine?
Yeah, and it's official policy too. And frisk you.
Stop and frisk policy where they give the New York City police license to just stop black and Latino youth, right, for no apparent reason.
No.
It's just an outrage. You know,
it is. It's outrageous.
So I totally agree with both you gentlemen that any assertion that race doesn't factor into this into this case, it's just got to be. I mean, you have to be just a conscious, racist of some sort. Are you on some other planet or something going on? Because it has nothing to do with the reality that I see every day.
No, not at all.
The fact is, and you can't take this away from it, the fact is, one man was armed, the other man wasn't. One man was just walking down the street, and he gets shot and killed. Now, I mean, what excuse could they possibly come up with to acquit the man? And I guess they followed the letter of the law, they say. Carter said they did. I've heard other people argue about that, too. My point is, why in the heck do they have a law like that?
Well, yeah, one of the things is now, they had their choice from the outset of this case. They could have had what you call a stand-the-ground hearing. Now, if they'd had a stand-the-ground hearing, Zimmerman would have testified, and if he won that, there would have been no trial. But they didn't have that because Zimmerman told 50 different stories to 50 different people. So in other words, he may have not been able to get past the stand-your-ground hearing. The stand-your-ground hearing, honestly, is not the issue in our self-defense. In the police report, they literally put Trayvon Martin down as the suspect. But what was his suspect in? And then they
put last time we were talking, and you're right.
Right. So they said, well, his suspect, and then there was some reports, well, they found some burglary tools. That was a lie. They found no burglary tools. There was no indication the man was going to commit a crime. First of all, he was just visiting out there in Sanford. He didn't live there. He lived in Miami Gardens, in the gardens in Miami. That's almost 400 miles away, 350 miles. So he really didn't know the neighborhood well enough to do anything of that nature. Zimmerman had lived there for 4 years around that neighborhood, and there were 3 streets in this neighborhood area, and he claimed he didn't know which street he was on. This is Zimmerman, not Trayvon. And the woman, Chantel, was talking to him up to the point that the shot rang out and his phone collapsed, and she explained why that was. He had an Android, and when he went down and pressed, as he went literally down, the Android cut off. And, she had that, and they vilified her also. So, this is, you're right. Carter just got into the wrong thing at the wrong time. He may be wanting to be a son of the South, but he turned out being an SOB basically on the scene.
Yeah, it pains me to agree with you.
Yeah, it's sad. Carter, throughout his administration, he's been involved in foreign policy, that sort of thing. He appointed Andy Young, and he appointed this other fella, Henry, I believe it was there. He appointed some African Americans. But I think Carter was one of these types, and still is a type, Georgian type guy in his 80s, but still sees life when he was a child, and basically he talked about his book. He had these black friends, and they played together, etc. And as they got to be older, and he started, dating girls and what have you, they ceased to play together, and he ceased to see them other than, he'd pass them by, or maybe they worked for his father or something, and that was about it. So in other words, the lives separated off forever, and that was the end of that story right there. So that's basically what he's kind of reinforcing there. And if you notice, he said it with authority. I mean, it wasn't just something, he just blurted out. He thought this out, supposedly. And he goes on TV in Atlanta, and talks about this, and that's the whole situation. In the couple of minutes we got left here, how do you gentlemen think this all is going to pan out? We're going to have demonstrations this Saturday. Dr. Sharp will have those in over 100 cities on the Trayvon Martin Day. And, of course, other things will occur here. The defense there, incidentally, is going to sue NBC Universal for defamation. They filed a suit. Now they're going to continue that, saying that they enhanced the tape with Zimmerman on it. And I'll ask Jerry this specifically. Jerry, how do you think that'll turn out, the defamation suit?
Well, if they can prove that NBC did that,
they did it.
Then
they did, in fact.
That's the point. I mean, if it actually goes to court. They had filed a lawsuit. I'm not quite sure why would NBC do that, but they did it.
They evidently, in the editorial process, and they always do this in the editorial process, they enhanced the editorial in such a way that it made him look worse than he should have looked. But here's the problem in a defamation lawsuit. You not only have to prove they did it, but did they do it with quote-unquote malice that comes in again?
Let me say this much. The journalism has slipped so much. I'm not even proud to say I'm a journalist part of the time. And it's the effect of ratings and really lack of thinking things through by some of the editorial staff of these networks these days. And you and I talked about this in the world of politics, and it's showing that they'll do anything to make it sound, to keep an audience and keep it going. They add drama, I guess is the best way to say it. And it's wrong. You should report the facts, and that's it.
Well, no doubt about that. CNN evidently broadcast a trial to get their ratings up. They got the talking heads in there. They were all skewed in Zimmerman's favor to keep that right-wing audience going there. So there's been all sorts of things going on here. But as you and I both know, Jerry, these large monopoly outfits like NBC, Universal, etc., they're difficult to get any money out of them unless they settle before they go to trial, but it's not easy.
And, of course, that's the reason I said if they can prove it. By that, I mean if they can survive all of the court challenges and the long time delay that's involved in these things. That's more or less the game they play, as you know, is delay, delay, delay. And pretty soon people tire of it. And I've known many cases where people just stop pursuing a verdict when they were awarded a lot of money.
Well, very true indeed. If you recall the Atlanta bombing case, that was Mr. Jewell. He was a security guard that discovered the backpack. And, of course, NBC put him down as suspect because they got this, quote-unquote inside information from law enforcement in Atlanta and some federal ATF agents, I believe. and they broadcast it all over the world there. And he eventually sued them for libel, won his lawsuit. He was living with his mother at the time. Unfortunately, he's dead. He died of diabetes very early, and I imagine from the stress that he was put under as being, the bomber. And of course, they got the bomber. The guy was named Rudolph. But the whole point was that was totally different. A totally innocent man wasn't involved with it at all, and he discovered the backpack. So you have those kind of, you say the editorial staff, they're in a hurry to get it up there. If it bleeds, it leads, and if they can make it bleed, it's definitely going to lead. And, they get it out there, and they got it out there. Sort of like Carter got his little editorial out there, and we'll have to check the Atlanta papers when we get finished up here and see how it goes. Anyway, L.A., we'll give you the last word, and if Jerry has the last word, we'll get to him, and we'll go out here.
Well, Jim, it's been wonderful talking with you. I just want to say that, Mayor Bloomberg here in New York City, he's used this verdict that the jury delivered as a platform to pursue gun control.
Okay.
As if the whole problem was guns.
Okay.
It's like what? So I mean, like that's a bit. It's tantamount to saying, well, like the whole problem with the Civil War was guns.
Right. Yeah, he's got gun control, man.
It's more going here than just guns.
And at the same time, he's defending stop and frisk, Bloomberg, that is.
Exactly. So he wants to control. He wants to control. It's not all guns he wants to control.
Right.
He wants to control, just the guns that are on other people's guns. He wants to keep his guns.
Well, yeah, he's got enough money to hire guns. A very good point you made there, L.A.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm totally, against that sort of thinking. The problem with the Civil War was not guns.
No, it was not. Indeed, it was not guns.
The problem with America today is not guns.
Right.
It's a history. It's steeped in racist violence. It's steeped in social inequality. It's steeped in a justice system that is done this time and time again. And I'll tell you, everybody and anybody who's right-minded knows that, and those kind of people, they are it's the kind of people like that are going to keep on fighting and going to keep on telling the truth, and we know that our enemy is not guns. It is people who have oppressed us for years and years and years. And West, that's what Bloomberg's trying to hide, because he's one of them.
Right, you got it there. He's one of the 1%. So we'll let Jerry Pippin have a last word here, and then I do have to go.
Well, I do think if he hadn't had a gun, Martin would still be alive. And but you're right. There's much more to it than that. And I don't know how we got into such a situation with law enforcement targeting the blacks and Hispanics. But they do. Statistics are out there. And when we talk about this particular case, I just don't know how you can get around the fact that it was manslaughter, but they did because of that Florida law. And I don't know, it just turns out to me that it seems that we now have so many conservative judges and law and order types that they're willing to validate anything to keep these things going. And I think the Florida legislature is that they're all accessories to murder. That's all I can say.
Oh, no doubt about it. Incidentally, Jeb Bush was the one that signed that that particular law, stand your ground laws, in about 20 other states. And in fact, in some of those states, if a police type comes and you're having your domestic situation with your wife, partner, whomever it is, you can shoot the police officer. So, it depends on what state you're in. And in your state, Jerry, now you can carry your gun on your holster. You don't have to conceal it. You can you play Marshall Dillon or whomever, OK Corral with Leon. So, I mean, they have dressed this up. Instantly, one other thing here, in the wider thing here with Mr. Snowden and company, the NSA evidently has now, they report to Congress today what they call free hop technology. What that basically means is one hop would be able to record our conversation. Two hops would be if they record LA's conversation, or LA's associates, I should say. And three hops means if they were recording Jerry's associates' conversations. Now, they may have four hops, but that just kind of tells you it's not the whole idea of grabbing metadata from party to A to B. It's the whole idea of A, B, C, D, E, and whomever else they can get in all these loops. So, in other words, if you have 15 associates and you got 15 associates, they can check all those out too. So that's what they call free hops. That's how we kind of end this. But they've got the surveillance going all kind of ways. Plus now the newest scheme the local cops have gotten, the rest of them, is your license plates. They take the numbers of those and they keep that that data around, and they know exactly where you are at a specific time. So in other words, if you're driving down the freeway or wherever you're driving, they got your license plate number. All that's digitized. They can look it up. And, of course, somebody else driving, doesn't matter. But all this surveillance, the whole thing, they got the whole police state. So it's not just a drone also trashed today somewhere. But there's not just drones in the air in Pakistan or drones flying around Houston. Look, they also use those incidentally to get the automobile license plates. So, I mean, you got stop, frisk, drones in the air, police, taking your license plate numbers, stopping you, profiling poor old Ishmael Reed. He's 75 years old out in there. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much for these interviews. ULA in the Bronx and Jerry Pippin down the street from Tom Coburn. I hadn't heard from him lately, but no doubt he's right around you there.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, M.A. Pleasure.
It's always good to be on the show.
Okay, Jerry, and we'll get this to Jane for you. Anyway, good night, gentlemen.
Oh, you bet. Good night now.
Okay.
Good night.